Good morning, everybody, and a happy Wednesday morning to you. I hope everybody is having a fabulous day. There is a lot of royal family stuff in here, and now we've got Jamageddon. That's right, it's coming big time. You guys are just not going to believe all of this. A big thank you to that one on Twitter for the picture you're looking at above. I bet you can guess what else we're covering in today's video. So let's just jump in and get started, shall we? Let's go. Now, before we jump in to the royal family stuff, I want to talk about this account. I don't know who this account is. It's one of those ones that, you know how you get online and you just sort of stumble around and you run into things. So I'm stumbling around and I found this really small account. He interviews the fighters, the MMA fighters. You know those people who go into the cages and they have themselves locked into the cages and they beat the crap out of each other? He interviews them. It's really good stuff. So I don't know why I'm telling you about it. It has nothing to do with the royals, but it was a really cool channel. So go over, take a look. If you like it, I would give this guy a subscribe. I subscribed. All right, let's move into our royal stuff. We're starting off with Boss Baby Louis. They're still talking about the fact that he was very calm and collected in the carriage, but once he got on that balcony, once again, he gets all excited watching the red arrows fly overhead, and he had his mouth open, and he's leaning over, and he's trying to get a good picture, a good vision of what's happening. Talking about the carriage, let me just say that during the traditional carriage procession down the Mall, we've already talked about this, there were some anti-monarchists booing the royal family. And Catherine immediately pivoted into protective mode and offered a stern, unwavering glare in the direction of the protesters because they're booing children. Had that been Meghan Markle in that carriage and people were booing, could you imagine how the Sussex squad would have reacted? So I'm going to play this for you so you can hear it first, and then I'm going to play it so you can see it. Listen to this. The children handled it well. You can see the look. It's a little bit of a distressing look on Charlotte's face when she looks over and realizes where the booing is coming from. And then George looks at Charlotte and then looks over to see where it's coming from. But I love the fact that George immediately waved like, hello, you're not bothering me. All right, really quickly, also, Charlotte's dress, I told you it was white. I didn't see any detailing on it, but lots of people have said, yes, there was little blue marks on her dress that matched Catherine's, and here they are close up, but no wonder I didn't see them. I mean, my goodness. Next up, Princess Diana's nieces, Lady Amelia and Eliza Spencer, were at the Cartier Queen's Polo Cup 2026 on June 14th, and they're wearing black outfits. So, of course, the news is going, it's their take on Diana's revenge dress. No, they're just wearing black. And a big thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us what the girls were wearing. Let's continue. It was Garter Day. The Order of the Garter, for those who don't know, is the oldest and most senior order of chivalry in Britain. And every year it is celebrated with a procession and service in the grounds of Windsor Castle. For those of you who don't know, in medieval times, King Edward III was so inspired by tales of King Arthur and the chivalry of the Knights of the Round Table, he set up his own group of honorable knights called the Order of the Garter. 700 years this has been in place. So this order is the oldest and most senior order of chivalry in Britain, and the knights, which now are men and women, used to just be limited to the aristocracy, but today they are chosen from a variety of backgrounds in recognition for their public service. So today the order includes the king, who is sovereign of the Garter. We have several senior members of the royal family, 24 knights chosen in recognition of their work, and Knights of the Garter are chosen personally by the king to honor those who have held public office, who have contributed in a special way to national life, or who have served the sovereign personally. These have included Marshal of the Royal Air Force, Lord Stirrup, former Prime Minister Sir John Major, Sir Winston Churchill. Yeah. The patron saint of the order is St. George, who's patron saint of soldiers and also of England. And if there are vacancies in the order, appointments are announced on St. George's Day, which is April 23rd. The spiritual home of the order is St. George's Chapel in Windsor, and every knight is required to display a banner of his arms in the chapel, together with a helmet, crest, and sword, and an enameled stall plate. So the knights' banners hang in the chapel above the stalls, and those quote-unquote achievements are taken down upon the death of the knight, and the insignia is returned to the sovereign. The stall plates remain as a memorial, and these now form one of the finest collections of heraldry in the world. I just think that's amazing. So you have the annual Garter Day procession, where the king and the knights proceed in grand velvet robes, insignia, and plumed hats. And again, it's one of the most traditional ceremonies in the royal calendar. Every June, a grand procession of the knights takes place at Windsor Castle, accompanied by a marching band, officers of the order, all in grand ceremonial dress. And the day begins with the sovereign formally investing any new companions with the order's insignia in the throne room of the castle. The members and officers attend a lunch hosted by the king, and then they all, go on foot to the service in St. George's Chapel. There's a short service where new companions are installed. The sovereign and other members of the order then return to the upper ward of the castle in carriages and cars. A limited number of tickets are available for members of the public to watch the procession to St. George's Chapel from inside Windsor Castle, and you can get up to 4 tickets each. Now, I find that to be pretty cool. I wondered how these people got in there. So as you've seen in these pictures, you had Prince William, King Charles, Queen Camilla, Edward, the Duke of Edinburgh. You had the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester. You had Princess Anne, all in this procession. The blue velvet robes and the ostrich feathered plume hats date all the way back to 1348. Unbelievable. Like, it's not changed at all since then. Now, of course, you can't not curtsy to the king when he passes by. Catherine sticks with protocol no matter what. I love that. Now, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, are not in the Order of the Garter, but they attend the event, as they have in years past, to support their husbands. They were standing along the procession route and chatting while they waited for the procession. Obviously, they smiled and waved when they saw their spouses. Now, people are saying that this is a snub, that Catherine and Sophie are not in the order. It is not a snub. What's going on here is membership is highly restricted, and it's usually reserved for those born into the royal family, along with a few select appointed. That's why Camilla is in, but Catherine and Sophie are not. They're not born into the royal family, and let's face it, Camilla is queen. But also keep in mind that the most noble order of the Garter is strictly capped at 24 living companion members, excluding the king and William. So it's frequently reserved for blood royals or those who served as the direct spouse of the reigning monarch, like Camilla. So spouses of heirs like Queen Mary or the late Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, were inducted, but formal appointments must be made at the sole discretion of the reigning sovereign. So right now, Catherine and Sophie are not appointed knight or lady, and they don't wear the velvet robes or the hats, but they always attend the service as invited guests of the royal family, if that makes any sense. I think it makes perfect sense why they're not in. But of course, some of these articles are coming out saying that, they were snubbed. They're being snubbed. They're not being snubbed. Clickbait, clickbait, clickbait. Now, unfortunately, I had to take the sound out for copyright purposes. However, I can tell you that the king and queen left. These may not be in the right order, but the king and queen left. Then William and Catherine left. Then Sophie and Edward got into the same carriage with Princess Anne and Sir Tim, Sir Tim Lawrence. But as each carriage went around the corner, they got rounds of applause from the people that were standing on either side of the procession. Catherine and Sophie also got a very large round of applause when they got out of the cards to go stand and wait for, the procession to go by. One other bit of background information that I thought was really cool. Why is it called a Garter ceremony? Well, according to history, King Edward was at a court ball when a lady's garter slipped to the floor. And so to spare her the embarrassment, he tied it to his own leg, and the crowd started snickering, and he rebuked the crowd with the words that remain the order's motto. Let me see if I can say this correctly. Honi soit qui mal vi pens. And I believe that that's Latin, and it means shame on him who thinks evil of it. Well, that's one way to shut a crowd down. Let me just add that as you can see from the people as the carriage goes up and around the corner, lots of people there. And for all of these articles coming out saying that, they don't like Catherine and William and they're sick of the royal family, you're wrong. The royal family is the UK. I've said this in just about every video this week. And for the last few videos, if you get rid of the royal family, the UK's economy is going to collapse. You need them. So I don't understand why the anti-monarchists are behaving the way they are. I'd like to send a big thank you to Remoulade Sauce and, of course, Carol M. for showing us the outfits that Sophie and Catherine were wearing. I just have to say I love the silk damask outfit that Catherine had on. Sophie looked great, but man, Catherine was just a total stunner as usual. Now, I want to throw Andrew out here for this because, he was a member of the Order of the Garter since 2006, and he used to join in all the festivities on the processions. And last year, he attended the non-public pre-ceremony lunch, but now he's been removed completely. So now, he's sitting in his house. He watched the whole family do Trooping the Color. Now he's watching the whole thing do Garter Day without him. It's got to be tough for him. It's one of those days that reminds him of everything that he's lost, and he's probably feeling really alone and isolated. And I know a lot of you don't like him. I just am concerned that you never hear about anybody else from Epstein. They always seem to just talk about Andrew, and he hasn't been convicted of anything. That's the only thing that bothers me about this whole scenario. Let's move on to Sarah. We know that she shut down her charity very abruptly. We know that Princess Eugenie is under investigation by the UK Charity Commission after a watchdog group complained it barely doled out cash, even though it collected $1.7 million in donations. And now you've got Princess Beatrice. People are telling her she needs to be transparent about the goings-ons in organizations linked to them, because it seems like everything linked to the York family is dubious at best. As far as Sarah goes, she skipped her niece's wedding despite it being held at her childhood home. We know that she's not made any public appearances since the Epstein files were released 9 months ago. And we also know now that we have all these damaging claims about her conduct, which is adding to her reputational challenges. Listen, she knew people were going to find things out because apparently she was offered a gift from Queen Elizabeth, but she was anxious about it because she knew eventually it would be reported. This isn't the only scandal that Fergie's ever been involved in. We know this. She's been involved in multiple scandals since she married Andrew. Now, we know that Andrew and Sarah lived together at the Royal Lodge. Sarah basically lived there for free. Well, it's coming out now that Andrew has demanded a payout for Sarah. Well, it is being reported that TV producers and publishers are lining up with interview and memoir offers for her. And now she's trying to use that to bribe the royal family into giving her a lifetime pension to buy her silence. Now, I have to be honest, I don't think that anybody would believe anything she said. And after spending, however, 4 decades moving in royal circles, attending private family gatherings, and witnessing moments behind palace walls, they're saying that she has a detailed understanding of how the institution operates. And because of that, any television project, memoir, or media venture is inevitably going to be viewed through a different lens than it would for most public figures. So, I don't think they're going to pay her, I got to be honest. All right, let's move on. Now, this story came out and it literally went ding, ding, ding in my head. We know that everybody likes to compare Meghan to Diana, but we also know that she was copying Wallis Simpson, an American divorced woman who married into the royal family. She dressed like her. She acts like her. Well, not always. I mean, Wallis Simpson never trashed the monarchy. I will say that. But do you guys remember that we kept hearing all the time how Meghan wanted an emerald in her engagement ring, that she wasn't happy with the ring that, she got from her husband, Harry? Meghan's been stepping out again without her engagement ring. Now, she's done this multiple times before. This isn't anything new. We've seen her ditch the ring in the past. However, the big thing is Meghan likes emeralds. She's always been a big emerald lover. Remember, she tried to get the tiara with the emerald. Well, did you guys know that Wallis Simpson, the woman who married the king, after he abdicated, had an engagement ring with a center stone that was sourced from Baghdad? Did you guys know that? Did you know that it was an emerald? It was a 19.77 carat emerald Cartier ring inscribed with their engagement date on it. And by the way, after this woman died, that ring went up for auction and it sold for over $50 million back in 1987. So do you guys remember we kept hearing all these stories about how Meghan wanted an emerald engagement ring and she wanted the one that was in the choker that Catherine wore to the Earthshot Prize and that Diana had been seen wearing. Well, now that I'm hearing this story, now that I'm aware that Wallis Simpson's engagement ring was a huge emerald, now we know those stories were more than likely true. Okay, let's move on to this supposed house that Harry and Meghan have in Portugal. These people are broke. They can't pay their bills, but supposedly they built a multi-million pound luxury private retreat somewhere. And it's being said that they're using people from Soho House, probably Marcus Anderson, to, work on the house and redecorate the estate. How are they redecorating an estate that they haven't even been to? I mean, listen, here's my thing. She's always around Marcus Anderson. We know that they've had a long-standing relationship, and I have a feeling that when this marriage goes belly up, which we all know eventually it will, Harry's going to be the one sitting in front of a camera going, there were 3 people in this relationship, so it was a bit crowded. Because Marcus Anderson was there before Harry, he's been there during Harry, and he's going to be there after Harry. Now, this may just be an investment in an estate. They may have a mortgage on it. They may be renting it out. Who the hell knows? It's just, one of their properties. But with all the money problems that they're having, I just don't think they paid cash for it. They still have a mortgage on their regular house. I don't think they would buy this house for cash. Just my opinion. All right, you guys, let's move on to Jamageddon. Here's what we're being told. Meghan might have to declare bankruptcy by the end of the year with her As Ever. Apparently, it really is on the brink of bankruptcy. Remember, she launched this in conjunction with the debut of With Love Meghan that's already been axed. But earlier this week, it emerged that the official As Ever website had a substantial decline in visitors between January and April. The traffic dropped over 33% just during the first quarter, while Meghan's being savaged by fans over the worst idea ever for Father's Day, considering the fact that she doesn't even speak to her father. And alongside the reporting of the visitor data, one of the royal experts said that the expiration dates for her jams, teas, and tins are rapidly approaching. And there is a greater likelihood of King Charles taking a swim in a pool of Meghan's homemade conserve than her selling all of her stock before the expiration dates arrive. And discussing the overall prospect, she indicated, this royal expert did, that Meghan's venture could go bankrupt just from the jam alone. People are like, Meghan just can't move enough product. She can't expect to sell things at full price with these shortened expiration dates. And so unless she and Harry have some miracle up their sleeve, there's absolutely no saving this business. They're saying she should hold a sale, but also understand she's going to get wrecked over it because it's kicking the can down the road because it's a ticking clock on the stock. Like literally. No, we know that earlier on, Meghan said her products were flying off the shelves and the whole thing about her stuff selling out isn't true anymore. And since she won't release numbers, I never believed that that was happening anyway. For those of you who don't remember, she even said that suddenly the conversation went from at the start of the year talking about a few thousand jars and lids to we need to do a purchase order of 1 million. That's what she told Bloomberg last August in her interview. I think that's coming back to bite her. Now, of course, Meghan's people are saying that's not true and people are just obsessed with wanting her to fail. And they're predicting the business is going to double in size somehow by the end of this year, which is in 6 months. And for a new business that's just over a year old, it's a major success. And that people are clouded by their own prejudices and they need to perpetuate a narrative that her business is a failure because they pegged her that way from the start and they can't take being wrong. Yeah, we'll see about that. Now, one other bit of information that just came out, we just found out that Netflix, who you'll remember was her only partner and her only investor, you remember they had stuff in the storerooms, they were giving it out to their staff? Well, they handed all the hundreds of thousands of her remaining inventory of products, including candles and herbal teas, back to her in January, 3 months before they announced the 5-year deal had come to an end. So that's why there's so much extra. And she's going to have to absorb the financial losses personally. Well, that could be a problem because if you can believe this, they're saying Harry is facing a crisis because most of his inheritance has gone towards Meghan's plans for as ever. And a source close to him has said that Harry is finding everything hard to move on from due to the fact that he's blown most of his inheritance on what's becoming clear are nothing more than passion projects. And there are even reports that Meghan has had all kinds of plans to turn the business around, but it's been the same pattern for years. The whole thing is about her and her as ever stuff selling out, and it's just not true. Neither one of them are happy about it. And it's people are saying that 5 years roughly before their lifestyle looks a lot different. Maybe she's hoping these new ads for clever blends will help. You guys remember the coffee that she invested in that we found out later on had high levels of lead? Well, she's got this new ad where she's pouring jam into this thing. It looks disgusting. You never see her drinking this crap. It looks like the Grinch took a poop in some coffee. Like, I don't know who in their right mind would drink this. That's absolutely disgusting. A big thank you to Krista Benson for this picture that she put up. I mean, she's screwed. Well, to top it all off, in more of an attempt to take the attention away from the royal family because they're so busy, Meghan puts this thing up. Oh, Kelly Zafin has caught the bug for Mahjong, and she puts up this picture. Can you just imagine that every single time you go to your friend's house, she's going to use you in some sort of advertisement in an attempt to pull attention away from other things going on? I myself would not be interested in that at all. It's kind of pathetic when you think about it. I myself would be very uncomfortable hanging out at a friend's house knowing that it's all performative and everything we do is going to end up on social media. All right, you guys, you know what I want. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the links to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my father's book, which remains up for sale on Amazon, a link to my Amazon wishlist, as well as a physical address. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.